In the current battlefield, the only thing that could still tempt Chen was that unique spot of the continental air. After Chen's battle with the Blood Spirit Sun, Chen's reputation once again spread throughout the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. This time, however, the impact was far greater than before. This time, an Upper Earth Supreme had actually fallen. In the Great Thousand Worlds, everyone knew that Upper Earth Supremes possessed extraordinary vitality. Defeating one was possible, but for one to truly fall, it was extremely difficult, unless the battle was overwhelmingly one-sided. Why were the three holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall so renowned across the Western Heaven continent? It was primarily because they had truly slain an Upper Earth Supreme. Yet now, such an astonishing feat had been accomplished by someone who was merely a Lower Earth Supreme. The shockwave this created was, in some ways, even stronger than the three holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall. For this reason, in the following days, no one dared to provoke Chen. The previous talk of suppressing him as an outsider to the Western Heaven continent had completely disappeared. It was a joke. Chen was clearly a harbinger of doom. He had killed the Blood Spirit Sun without a second thought, showing no hesitation. This kind of ruthless approach indicated that he would repay any grudges. If anyone angered him, the consequences would likely be far worse than expected. As a result, no one dared to trouble Chen, and he enjoyed a few peaceful days. During this time of peace, Chen focused on studying the Three Spirits battle formation and gradually began to master it. After all, the difficulty of cultivating this formation wasn't too high. It was simply the harsh conditions that made it difficult. Having gained initial control over the Three Spirits battle formation, Chen returned to the battlefield. However, this time, he didn't set up a spirit array and wait for opportunities like before. Instead, he took a more proactive approach. He directly summoned the soul-slaughtering guards and the demon-subduing guards, leading the two armies in a sweeping assault. Whenever they encountered an Upper Earth Supreme, Chen wasted no time. His overwhelming battle intent surged, enveloping the opponent, and then a grand battle would ensue. However, most of these battles ended in Chen's victory, as he was now able to face the elite Upper Earth Supremes head-on with nothing but the battle intent of the soul-slaughtering guards and demon-subduing guards. During the battle, his crystal spiritual energy would silently infiltrate the enemy's defenses, and by the time they realized what was happening, part of their spiritual energy would already be sealed. The situation would collapse, forcing them to surrender. For those who surrendered, Chen showed no cruelty as he had with the Blood Spirit Sun. After all, the Blood Spirit Sun had been Luo Li's sworn enemy, and had repeatedly used cunning tactics against him. Chen had no intention of showing any mercy in that case. But the other Upper Earth Supremes were different. They didn't have too strong personal grudges against each other. If it came down to a battle, it might not be a big deal for him. After all, the foundation of Muin Manor was not located in the Western Heaven continent. However, the forces of those Upper Earth Supremes would inevitably drag the Luo God clan into the conflict. This would undoubtedly isolate the Luo God clan in the Western Heaven continent, leaving them surrounded by enemies. This was clearly not what Chen wanted to see. So, when those opponents admitted defeat, Chen simply seized their battle seals, allowing them to safely withdraw from the battlefield. Under such a sweeping advance, Chen's infamous reputation grew stronger and stronger. Eventually, wherever the battle will soared, other Upper Earth Supremes would immediately steer clear, fearing the wrath of this calamity bringer. At this point, everyone knew that Chen had truly become a dark horse in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. Looking across the battlefield, the only few who could challenge this dark horse were a select group of fierce warriors. Boom. The overwhelming battle will spread like an ocean, blocking out the sun and shaking the very heavens. As the waves of battle will surge through the area, it felt as if the entire world was trembling. At the heart of this ocean of battle will, a man in green robes wore a bitter expression. He hadn't expected to be so unlucky today. Chen made his way toward the mountain range, but just as he entered, his eyes suddenly sharpened. His gaze locked on a deep part of the mountains, where he sensed a faint ripple of spiritual energy. That spiritual energy felt vaguely familiar. Chen's eyes flickered, and in the blink of an eye, his figure turned into a streak of light, appearing deep in the mountains. He scanned the area and saw beneath a towering ancient tree a figure cloaked in black, calmly sitting cross-legged. His white hair and scholarly demeanor revealed that it was none other than Lu Xingchen, the pavilion master of Star Pavilion. However, Lu Xingchen's face was now deathly pale. His skin was riddled with bleeding wounds, and the once refined and gentle appearance was replaced by a look of sheer agony. Seeing his terrifying injuries, Mu Chen's heart trembled slightly. Clearly, these wounds must have been inflicted during his earlier battle with Spirit Warrior. Lu Xingchen, seemingly aware of Mu Chen's arrival, opened his half-closed eyes and smiled bitterly. Mu Chen gazed at the injured Lu Xingchen with a strange smile and said, "Looks like my luck is good. I've stumbled upon a windfall." Lu Xingchen chuckled and sighed. "No wonder you are the direct disciple of the Western Heaven War Emperor. Truly extraordinary. I thought I could hold my ground, but now I see. I overestimated myself and underestimated him. It seems you lost in your earlier encounter, but managed to escape at the last moment." Mu Chen finally understood that Lu Xingchen hadn't fought Spirit Warrior to a standstill. Rather, he had been heavily wounded, but had escaped. No wonder Spirit Warrior hadn't seized his battle seal. Lu Xingchen smiled wryly and nodded, lamenting, "Spirit Warrior is truly ruthless. It seems I will have to disappoint Brother Su and Brother Chu's alliance." Alliance. Mu Chen's heart stirred. The Brother Su and Brother Chu Lu Xingchen mentioned were most likely Su Mu, the Langya Sword Immortal, and Chu Min, the Overlord Blade. He hadn't expected that they had formed an alliance. "It's not exactly an alliance, just an agreement," Lu Xingchen explained. "The three of us were unwilling to submit to the three Holy Sons of Western Heaven Battle Hall and decided to challenge them in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. So we agreed to join forces. But now, I've been severely injured, and I've failed to live up to their expectations." Mu Chen now understood. Clearly, Lu Xingchen and his allies had been wary of the three Holy Sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall, which is why they had joined forces. But now, with Lu Xingchen severely wounded, once the three Holy Sons gathered, other competitors would lose their chance at the title of Continental Heir. "But why are you telling me all this? Are you hoping I won't take advantage of this great opportunity?" Mu Chen asked with a half-smile, his gaze fixed on Lu Xingchen. With the latter gravely injured and greatly weakened, Mu Chen realized that if he acted now, he could likely seize the battle seal. Lu Xingchen, however, gave a dry laugh and said, "Quite the opposite. I'm actually willing to hand over the battle seal to you, but I'm afraid you might not dare accept it." "Why?" Lu Xingchen smiled faintly and explained, "In my current state, I'm barely a tenth of my combat strength. By the time I recover, the battlefield will likely be over, so my staying here would serve no purpose. I remain because I don't want to let the battle seal fall into Spirit Warrior's hands. If you truly have the courage, I'll gladly hand it over to you. However, with Spirit Warrior's terrifying influence, he has already set his sights on me as his prey. In the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, who dares to touch what he covets? If my battle seal falls into your hands, you'll immediately surpass him and take the top spot. He'll certainly come after you first. Would you still dare take the battle seal when you know that Spirit Warrior will be gunning for you?" Lu Xingchen looked at Mu Chen with a faint smile, as if trying to discern any hint of fear on the young man's face. However, to his surprise, Mu Chen's expression remained as calm as a tranquil pond, with no sign of hesitation. After Lu Xingchen finished speaking, Mu Chen smiled casually and replied, "Why wouldn't I dare? I came to the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield for that one and only spot. Even without your battle seals, I would still seek out Spirit Warrior for a fight." Willow Star was momentarily stunned. He fixed his gaze on Mu Chen, his expression growing increasingly serious. He could see that there was no trace of fear in Mu Chen's demeanor, and his words were not mere bravado. That could only mean one thing: Mu Chen had long intended to battle the Spirit Warrior. Willow Star had, of course, heard of Mu Chen. A man capable of such remarkable achievements was certainly not a reckless fool. If he still dared to speak with such confidence, then he must have something to rely on, something that gave him the courage to challenge the Spirit Warrior. "I originally thought that in this Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, I was the only one capable of stopping the Spirit Warrior. But now, it seems I have overestimated myself." After a long silence, Willow Star finally withdrew his gaze and spoke slowly. Mu Chen merely smiled and said, "So, what is your decision?" Hearing this, Willow Star suddenly laughed. With a flick of his sleeve, dozens of battle seals shot toward Mu Chen. He chuckled, very well. Though I lost to the Spirit Warrior, if I can make things a little more difficult for him, then it's not a complete loss. Mu Chen, if you truly have the courage you claim, then take these battle seals. I will wait outside the battlefield for your showdown with the spirit warrior. I hope you won't disappoint me when the time comes." Muin watched as the battle seals flew toward him. With a sweep of his sleeve, he unceremoniously collected them all. Then, clasping his hands in respect, he smiled and said, "Then I shall trouble Brother Willow to wait for the good news." Willow Star smiled and nodded. His figure gradually faded until he completely disappeared from the battlefield. As Willow Star vanished, the battle seals in Muin's hand emitted a brilliant glow. On the battle seal ranking, Muin's name suddenly shot to the top, directly taking first place. First place, Muin, 43 battle seals. At that moment, the entire battlefield, both inside and outside, erupted in shock. At the very moment Muin reached the top, a radiant screen rose around White Jade Plaza. Displayed upon it was the battle seal ranking from the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield. The moment the crowd saw Muin's name soar to first place, an uproar exploded across the plaza. Heavens! What happened? How did Muin jump from 7th place to first all of a sudden? It's Willow Star. Willow Star has disappeared. It looks like Muin took his battle seals. TSK, what a classic case of the mantis stalking the cicada, only to be caught by the oriole. This Muin is truly cunning. Willow Star was gravely injured by the spirit warrior, leaving his strength greatly diminished. It seems Muin seized the opportunity to pick up an easy gain. But this might not be good news for him. By doing this, he has undoubtedly provoked the spirit warrior. Now, Muin is likely in serious trouble. A flood of hushed discussions erupted. Almost everyone believed that Muin's sudden rise to first place was more of a curse than a blessing. After all, they had witnessed the terrifying power of the spirit warrior. Even someone as strong as Willow Star had ultimately fallen to him. Though Muin had emerged as a dark horse, compared to the spirit warrior, who was the undisputed favorite to win, he still seemed to lack the reputation and foundation to compete at the highest level. Luo Heavenly God also gazed at the ranking, his brows furrowed. Based on his previous assessment of Muin's character, he had expected him to bide his time, waiting for Willow Star, Wolf Fang Sword Immortal, and Overlord Blade Chumin to battle the 3 Holy Sons before making his move. But now, with this unexpected development, Muin had directly taken the top spot. This would undoubtedly draw the Spirit Warrior's hostility. Having witnessed the Spirit Warrior's terrifying strength firsthand, even Luo Heavenly God, who had a fair amount of confidence in Muin, couldn't help but feel a trace of unease. Haha, Muin actually made it to first place. What an unexpected surprise. The Western Battle Emperor chuckled as he turned to the Flame Emperor, but there was a hint of mockery in his smile. Others might not know the details, but figures like the Western Battle Emperor and the Flame Emperor certainly did. There had been no real battle between Muin and Willow Star. Muin had simply taken advantage of the Spirit Warrior's efforts to claim the battle seals. However, in a battlefield like this, such opportunistic gains often came with their own risks. Sensing the amusement in the Western Battle Emperor's tone, the Flame Emperor merely smiled and said, Muin came here for the sole purpose of claiming that one and only spot. Naturally, he wouldn't refuse battle seals that fell right into his lap. Besides, if it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't have had the nerve to take advantage of this situation. The Western Battle Emperor laughed heartily and said with amusement, "Well then, let's see if he has what it takes to hold on to that position." In the northwestern part of the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, an unremarkable-looking man, seemingly ordinary and inconspicuous, also opened the light screen. His gaze fell on Muin's name, trailing behind it over 40 battle seals. His brows furrowed slightly before he let out a faint smile. Interesting. I never thought there would be a day when even I, the spirit warrior, would be outmaneuvered. At this moment, Willow Star had already disappeared from the rankings, evidently having been eliminated from the battlefield. With just a little thought, he understood that the hard-earned battle results he had accumulated had been snatched away. Haha, who would have thought? Even you have a day like this. A laugh suddenly rang out from the side. 2 streaks of light whizzed through the air and landed beside him. As the light dissipated, 2 figures emerged. It was none other than the other 2 holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall, Spirit Sword Sun and Spirit Dragon. Spirit Warrior glanced at the 2 of them and smiled. I heard that Willow Star, Chu Min, and Su Mu had made a pact to join forces against us. Now that Willow Star has been taken care of, the other 2 are yours to handle as you see fit. Spirit Sword Sun smirked indifferently. That so-called Langya Sword Immortal. I've been itching to meet him. Once I break his sword, Let's see if he still dares to bear such a title. The towering, iron tower-like spirit dragon also grinned, revealing sharp, white teeth. I'd like to see just how much that tyrant blade weighs. Spirit warrior chuckled. The battlefield is nearing its end. I suggest we first sweep away the small fries trying to fish in troubled waters, then deal with those three. And after that, the three of us will settle things once and for all. Hearing this, Spirit Sword Sun and Spirit Dragon both nodded. Though they were competitors, they knew they had to eliminate the others first. If the sole victory slot fell into someone else's hands, they would all face the wrath of the War Emperor. The two wasted no time. As soon as the decision was made, they shot off like lightning, disappearing beyond the horizon in an instant. Spirit Warrior watched them leave before shifting his gaze back to the battle seal light screen. His eyes lingered on the name at the top, Muin. A faint smile played on his lips. Enjoy that spot while you can. Once I'm done sweeping away the small fish, I'll personally drag you down from there. With that, he flicked his sleeve, the light screen dissipated, and his figure faded into the void. First place, just like that. While the battlefield and its spectators were shaken by the sudden change in rankings, Muin merely shrugged with amusement. To many, his ascent to first place must have seemed like sheer luck. But he didn't dwell on it. Whether it was luck or strength, the truth would be revealed in the final battle. For now, there's no need to seize any more battle seals. I just have to wait for the final showdown. With that thought, Muin moved, appearing atop a mountain peak. Sitting cross-legged, he remained still, his expression as calm as a deep lake. At this stage, there was no longer any need to roam the battlefield in search of opponents. He knew that the final clash would inevitably involve him. Closing his eyes, Muin steadied his mind and continued refining his mastery of the three spirits battle formation. However, his quiet cultivation didn't last long. Soon, he sensed two surges of spiritual energy approaching at astonishing speed. Opening his eyes, he looked toward the distance. Two streams of light streaked across the sky, and within mere breaths, they materialized into two figures standing before him in midair. One wore a green robe, carrying a rusted iron sword on his back. His entire being exuded a sharp, overwhelming sword aura that made one's eyes sting just by looking at him. The other was a towering, wild-looking man with long, unbound hair. His rugged features radiated dominance, making him an imposing presence. Langia Sword Immortal Su-Mu. Tyrant Blade, Chu-Min. Muin looked up at them with a smile, unsurprised that they had come looking for him. Did you take advantage of the situation and snatch Brother Lu's battle seals? Chu-Min's sharp gaze locked onto Muin, his voice deep and forceful. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, Muin replied with a faint smile. Chu-Min's expression darkened with anger. Brother Lu was waiting for us. If we had arrived in time, we could have helped him recover and fought the three holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall together. But you little brat, seized the opportunity and kicked him out of the battlefield. Hearing this, Muin frowned. On this battlefield, everyone is an enemy. Why would I let Willow Star go? Your agreement with him has nothing to do with me. Su-Mu's eyes flickered upon hearing this. It seems Brother Lu told you about it himself. Muin glanced at them. Willow Star fought Spirit Warrior and was gravely injured. He knew he could no longer compete, so he passed the battle seals to me. But don't mistake his actions for kindness. He simply wanted to pit me against Spirit Warrior. Arrogant fool. Chu-Min, evidently hot-tempered, scowled. You talk as if you're even qualified to challenge Spirit Warrior. Even Willow Star was defeated by the Spirit Warrior, and now, before them stood Muin, whose strength was merely that of a lower Earth Supreme. Yet, he dared to speak so arrogantly, it was truly laughable. Whether I have the qualifications or not is not for you to decide, Muin said with a light smile. You. Chu-Min fumed with anger. At this moment, the Langia Sword Immortal, Su-Mu, stepped forward and restrained Chu-Min. He then turned to Muin, speaking in a calm tone. Brother Mu, whether or not Brother Lu gave you the battle seal, we don't care. However, I just want to say that if you intend to exchange these battle seals for treasures and then withdraw, then the two of us may have to take those seals back. Muin replied calmly, my goal is that one spot. Upon hearing Muin's answer, Su-Mu seemed to relax a little, then smiled and said, in that case, do you know the current situation on the battlefield? The three holy sons are sweeping through the masses. If nothing unexpected happens, then they will be the last three standing. If we are all eliminated, do you think you can defeat all three and claim the only spot? Mu Chen's eyes flickered slightly. What are you trying to say? Sumu smiled and said, I simply want to ask if Brother Mu is willing to take Brother Lu's place. Only the three of us working together can counter the three holy sons. Otherwise, I'm afraid that spot will have nothing to do with us. Agreed. Mu Chen nodded decisively, for he indeed needed help to block the other two holy sons. Otherwise, even with his one chi transforms three purities, it would be impossible to face three opponents alone. Seeing Mu Chen's agreement, Sumu wasn't surprised. If Mu Chen wanted that spot, he would need allies. Clearly, only he and Chu Min could provide that help in this battle. Sumu smiled slightly and said, since Brother Mu has agreed, that's great, but we need to confirm something. What's that? Mu Chen raised his head. Sumu smiled, slowly gripping the rusted iron sword on his back. A terrifying sword aura surged forth, wreaking havoc across the sky. We just need to confirm whether Brother Mu really has the qualifications to cooperate with us. Buzz. As Sumu's hand gripped the rusted iron sword, a terrifying sword aura exploded, tearing through the air. The space around them was visibly cut, leaving marks from the incredible sword energy. His eyes flashed with a dazzling light, directly locking onto Mu Chen. The previous calmness was now completely gone. First came the courtesy, now came the blade. The previous greeting was over, and now it was time to test Mu Chen's strength. If they found that he was unqualified to join forces with them, they would act immediately, forcefully taking the battle seal from him. Equality between the two sides was only built on enough strength. If Mu Chen wanted to be treated as their equal, he needed to demonstrate matching strength. Mu Chen understood this clearly, so he didn't show any displeasure. He simply nodded and spoke in an even tone, then I humbly asked Brother Su to enlighten me. Seeing that Mu Chen showed no fear, Sumu also nodded slightly. He had heard of Mu Chen's reputation lately, so it was clear that he had some skill. However, their task now was to deal with the three holy sons. These three were famous throughout the Western Heaven continent for their power, and thus, they needed to confirm whether Mu Chen was strong enough. If he wasn't, he would be the weakest link, causing their plan to fail. If that happened, they might as well take Willow Star's battle seal back, exchange it for treasures, and leave the battlefield early. With that thought, Sumu no longer hesitated. He swiftly drew the rusted iron sword and, with a flick of his wrist, slashed it lightly in front of him. Buzz. As the sword moved, the sky before them rippled, as if the sword had passed through flowing water. In the next moment, the sword light exploded, and a blade of sword energy, about 1,000 feet long, shot out, piercing the sky as it headed straight for the mountain where Mu Chen stood. The style of that sword strike seemed as though it could cut through any obstacle in its path. Faced with such a fierce blow, even an Upper Earth Supreme could only momentarily retreat, unwilling to face it head-on. Sumu showed no mercy with his strike. The Langya sword immortal truly lives up to his name. As the sword energy howled toward him, Mu Chen couldn't help but silently praise, before he waved his sleeve. From beneath the mountain, vast battle intent surged into the sky, transforming into a black tortoise battle spirit. The spirit roared like a mountain, blocking the path ahead. Swish. The sword light slashed brutally against the black tortoise battle spirit's body. The next moment, the battle spirit let out a violent roar as battle intent surged, trying to resist. But in the next instant, the overwhelming sword light ripped through it, leaving a deep gash across the spirit's body, nearly cleaving it in two. Sumu's strike had pierced through the black tortoise battle spirit's defense. Though the sword light dimmed somewhat after piercing through the battle spirit, its speed didn't decrease as it continued toward Mu Chen, as though it would not rest until it had claimed blood. The sword light rapidly grew larger in Mu Chen's vision. Just as it was about to enter a range of 100 feet, a spirit array appeared around him. 9 spiritual energy dragons roared toward the sky, exhaling powerful spiritual energy breath. The dragon's breath collided violently with the sword light. Bang! Bang! The sword light howled past, and the spiritual energy dragon breath shattered one by one. The sword light flickered, and within just a few breaths, it had pierced through the 9 dragons slaying immortal array, appearing right before Mu Chen's face, aiming for his brow. Impressive. Seeing that even the black tortoise battle spirit and the 9 dragons slaying immortal array couldn't stop Su Mu's extraordinary strike, Mu Chen couldn't help but praise. His pupils shimmered with crystalline light. Swish. The sword light arrived in an instant, but just as it was about to strike Mu Chen's brow, a burst of crystalline light shot from his forehead, transforming into a palm-sized, exquisite crystal tower. The sword light and the crystal tower collided once again. Clang! A crisp sound echoed through the sky. The mountain where Muin sat was directly sliced into countless fragments, which fell with a thunderous crash. The crystalline light expanded, layering over the sword light. The sword light rippled and gradually became faint, eventually transforming into a cluster of light spots that dissipated. As the sword light vanished, the crystal tower flew back to Muin's forehead. He remained seated in midair, waving his sleeve, dispersing the battle intent and spirit array. He looked up at Xun'er and smiled, saying, "The Langya sword immortal truly lives up to his name." This was no empty praise. That previous strike alone proved that Xun'er was a standout even among Upper Earth Supremes. The sharpness of his sword energy had managed to pierce through both his battle and spirit array defenses without breaking stride. That sword of his seems no ordinary weapon. Muin glanced at the rusted iron sword in the Langya sword immortal's hand. Though it looked unremarkable, Muin guessed that this sword was likely a mid-tier sacred artifact, comparable to the star suppression tower in Mandala's hands. In midair, Xun'er stared at Muin, who remained unscathed. His gaze sharpened, and he exchanged a look with Muin, both sensing a solemnity in the other's eyes. Though the previous sword wasn't Xun'er's strongest, it was certainly merciless. Yet, Muin had still blocked it, and more importantly, it was clear that Muin had held back. That meant Xun'er's sword hadn't even forced Muin to reveal his deeper trump cards. What Xun'er and Muin had seen were still just a few of Muin's publicly displayed techniques. This realization made both Xun'er and Muin, who had regarded Muin as a mere lower Earth Supreme, feel a deep sense of uncertainty about his true strength. Do I now have the qualifications? Muin looked at the two, rising to his feet with a smile. Xun'er smiled and nodded. Even Muin's demeanor softened at this moment, clearly acknowledging Muin's strength. No wonder Muin's rise has been unstoppable in recent days. Seeing it with my own eyes today, I now understand the truth behind the rumors. Xun'er and Muin moved closer to Muin, smiling gently. Muin smiled as well, and after some polite exchanges, he shifted the topic. What are your plans next? His question was naturally aimed at the three holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall. Muin glanced at Xun'er and said, "Based on our estimates, the three holy sons are likely already cleaning up the battlefield. It won't be long before everyone, except the three of us, will be driven out of this battlefield. They are planning the final battle," Muin said with a solemn expression. The three holy sons clearly intended to clear the battlefield, making sure no one would take advantage of the chaos. If it's the final battle, how should we allocate our roles? Muin asked again. Muin scratched his head and said, "According to the agreement I had with Brother Lu, I should be the one to take on Spirit Dragon. This person has an incredibly tough body, just like me, relying on brute force. It's a perfect match for a direct clash. And Brother Su will stop Spirit Sword's son. Both of them are considered the top experts in swordsmanship among the Upper Earth Supremes on the Western Heaven continent. They have a history of grudges and are probably planning to settle them in this battle." At this point, both Muin and Xun'er awkwardly looked at Muin. This meant that the most troublesome of the three holy sons, Spirit Warrior, would fall to Muin. "If Brother Mu feels uncomfortable with this, I can take on Spirit Warrior." Xun'er hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and saying, he knew just how powerful Spirit Warrior was. Even Lu Xingqian, the strongest among their trio, had been defeated by him. So, Xun'er feared that even he wouldn't be able to win. But if he could delay things long enough for Muin and Muin to secure victory, the outcome might be turned around. Muin thought for a moment upon hearing this, then shook his head with a smile, saying, "Thank you for your kindness, Brother Su, but since I've received Lu Brother's battle seal, I should take on his responsibility. Besides, I've severed Spirit Warrior's plans, and I doubt he'll let that slide." Muin politely declined Xun'er's offer. He wasn't entirely convinced about Xun'er's reliability. After all, if it came down to a 3-on-3 and something went wrong, with Xun'er being swiftly dealt with by Spirit Warrior, it could set off a chain reaction, leading to a complete collapse of the situation. That was something Muin didn't want to see. Rather than that, he preferred to face Spirit Warrior directly. Unlike Xun'er and the others, who were anxious and cautious, Muin wasn't afraid of Spirit Warrior. In fact, he was eager for the battle. He knew that Spirit Warrior was an excellent test. He wanted to use him to push his own limits and discover just where his true boundaries lay. Xun'er and Muin were momentarily stunned by the smile on Muin's face. They also sensed that Muin had no fear of Spirit Warrior at all. Perhaps he really can take on Spirit Warrior? The two of them were somewhat relieved by Mu Chen's attitude, and their spirits lightened as they hoped for the best. "Then let's stay here and await the final battle," Mu Chen said with a smile, before descending into the vast Lin Hai, sitting atop an ancient tree with a calm expression. Sumu and Chumin also settled on the nearby peaks, gazing into the distance. Their eyes flickered, their spiritual energy swirling around them, reflecting the turmoil within. The sky turned, with the sun and moon shifting as if an entire day had passed in the blink of an eye. Though they sat in silence, the three of them subtly felt the space around them growing emptier. The earlier chaos had quieted, signaling that the area had been thoroughly cleaned and prepared. The warm sun hung high in the sky, its rays spilling down. Mu Chen slowly opened his eyes, and Sumu and Chumin followed suit, opening theirs as well. They looked up toward the western sky, where the space suddenly trembled. The clouds churned, and 3 streaks of light, like comets, shot across the sky. In the blink of an eye, these streaks of light appeared in the land below, transforming into 3 figures standing tens of thousands of feet away from Mu Chen and the others. The 3 of them slowly rose to their feet and faced off against the figures in the distance. At this moment, the heavens and earth seemed to darken. In the vast expanse, 6 figures stood facing each other from afar. It was as if a fierce wind had materialized from the sky, howling and tearing in all directions, creating an overwhelming atmosphere. An indescribable sense of pressure enveloped the land, freezing the air itself. Even the noisy atmosphere around the white jade plaza fell silent. Countless eyes anxiously focused on the shimmering energy barrier. Everyone knew that after many rounds of elimination, the final battle on the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield was about to begin, and the one remaining spot would be determined among these 6. However, it was clear that most people were betting on the 3 holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall. After all, when it came to reputation and battle achievements, they far surpassed Mu Chen and his companions. As for Mu Chen, who had taken over the position of Willow Star, people thought for a moment and felt that even Willow Star had been severely injured by the Spirit Warrior. Although the latter had many hidden moves and trump cards, it still seemed unlikely that he could shake the Spirit Warrior's position. Looking at it this way, just in terms of lineup, the 3 holy sons held an absolute advantage. Sigh, it looks like this time, Sumu and his companions are going to return empty-handed. A powerful figure sighed. The holy sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall were simply too strong, and the elites from other factions were no match for them. Nothing is absolute. Who knows, maybe there will be some unexpected turns. After all, there have been quite a few surprises in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield this time. Some others held a different opinion. They didn't think the 3 holy sons were certain to win. After all, although they were strong, Sumu, Chumin, and the rapidly rising Mu Chen were not to be underestimated. Anyway, this battle is going to be fierce beyond description. The real question is, who will be the last one standing? This remark drew many agreeing voices. Being able to survive up until now in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, where all the heroes gathered, was proof enough of the excellence of these 6 individuals. In the stillness of the air, 6 pairs of eyes met from a distance, and a chilling, bone-piercing aura seemed to spread. So the last 3 rats have finally gathered together? Spirit Sword Sun's voice broke the frozen atmosphere. He smiled, looking at Sumu, Chumin, and Mu Chen, his gaze as though they were prey caught in a trap. Stop always thinking of yourself as the hunter. Even hunters sometimes get killed by their prey's counterattack. Sumu raised his eyes and coldly stared at Spirit Sword Sun, sneering. Oh? Is that so? Spirit Sword Sun shrugged indifferently, then showed a sinister grin. Well, if that's the case, then I'll break the prey's limbs so they can't even fight back. There was a tense atmosphere between Spirit Sword Sun and Sumu, both eyes filled with killing intent. Clearly, there was some past grudge between these two. As Spirit Sword Sun and Sumu glared at each other, the calm-eyed Spirit Warrior focused his gaze on Mu Chen, then seemingly smiled and said, "The battle seals of Willow Star should have fallen into your hands by now." Mu Chen nodded calmly. "Give me the battle seals, and then you can leave the battlefield. You are someone chosen by the Flame Emperor. I don't want to see you in such a sorry state that it would embarrass the Flame Emperor." Spirit Warrior extended his hand, smiling at Mu Chen, but the smile lacked warmth. His eyes were filled with indifference. In response to this indifference, a smile appeared on Mu Chen's youthful and handsome face. He shook his head and said, "I won't." Haha. Mu Chen's straightforward answer immediately caused Chumin beside him to burst out laughing. Spirit Warrior's words, though seemingly gentle, contained such contempt that they angered anyone listening. But Mu Chen's blunt reply turned Spirit Warrior's pressure into a joke. Spirit Warrior stared at Mu Chen for a long moment, then nodded slightly, sighing, in that case, don't blame me for not giving face to the Flame Emperor. Giving face to the Flame Emperor. That's something the Western Battle Emperor might listen to, but you. Although you're a disciple of the Western Battle Emperor, you're still far from his level. Mu Chen sighed helplessly and responded. Mu Chen did not like Spirit Warrior's pretentious tone, so he counterattacked fiercely, showing no regard for the other's pride. And to Spirit Warrior, Mu Chen's retort was indeed harsh. He glared at Mu Chen for a while, then rubbed his brow, saying, looks like you're truly seeking death. His voice remained calm, but this time, everyone could feel the cold killing intent beneath his words. Both Spirit Sword's son and Spirit Dragon's son noticed Spirit Warrior's change in demeanor and immediately shot Mu Chen a look of pity. They knew him too well. Every time Spirit Warrior was about to go all out, he would unconsciously rub his brow. And the outcome was always the same. His opponents ended up in a tragic, gruesome state. Mu Chen might soon realize the heavy price of provoking the Spirit Warrior. Choose someone, the Spirit Warrior said, glancing at the Spirit Sword's son and the Spirit Dragon. The Spirit Sword's son burst out laughing, his figure shooting towards the distant mountains, a fierce and cold sword energy shooting up into the sky. His laughter echoed as he called out, Sumu, let's see if you dare to call yourself a sword immortal after today. Are you afraid? As for Mu Chen, who had taken over the position of Willow Star, people thought for a moment and felt that even Willow Star had been severely injured by the Spirit Warrior. Although the latter had many hidden moves and trump cards, it still seemed unlikely that he could shake the Spirit Warrior's position. Looking at it this way, just in terms of lineup, the three Holy Sons held an absolute advantage. Sigh. It looks like this time, Su Mu and his companions are going to return empty-handed. A powerful figure sighed. The Holy Sons of the Western Heaven Battle Hall were simply too strong, and the elites from other factions were no match for them. Nothing is absolute. Who knows, maybe there will be some unexpected turns. After all, there have been quite a few surprises in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield this time. Some others held a different opinion. They didn't think the three Holy Sons were certain to win. After all, although they were strong, Su Mu, Chu Min, and the rapidly rising Mu Chen were not to be underestimated. Anyway, this battle is going to be fierce beyond description. The real question is, who will be the last one standing? This remark drew many agreeing voices. Being able to survive up until now in the Upper Earth Supreme battlefield, where all the heroes gathered, was proof enough of the excellence of these 6 individuals. In the stillness of the air, 6 pairs of eyes met from a distance, and a chilling, bone-piercing aura seemed to spread. So the last 3 rats have finally gathered together? Spirit Sword Son's voice broke the frozen atmosphere. He smiled, looking at Su Mu, Chu Min, and Mu Chen, his gaze as though they were prey caught in a trap. Stop always thinking of yourself as the hunter. Even hunters sometimes get killed by their prey's counterattack. Su Mu raised his eyes and coldly stared at Spirit Sword Son, sneering. Oh, is that so? Spirit Sword Son shrugged indifferently, then showed a sinister grin. Well, if that's the case, then I'll break the prey's limbs so they can't even fight back. There was a tense atmosphere between Spirit Sword Son and Su Mu, both eyes filled with killing intent. Clearly, there was some past grudge between these two. As Spirit Sword Son and Su Mu glared at each other, the calm-eyed Spirit Warrior focused his gaze on Mu Chen, then seemingly smiled, and said, the battle seals of Willow Star should have fallen into your hands by now. Mu Chen nodded calmly. Give me the battle seals, and then you can leave the battlefield. You are someone chosen by the Flame Emperor. I don't want to see you in such a sorry state that it would embarrass the Flame Emperor. Spirit Warrior extended his hand, smiling at Mu Chen, but the smile lacked warmth. His eyes were filled with indifference. In response to this indifference, a smile appeared on Mu Chen's youthful and handsome face. He shook his head and said, I won't. Haha. Mu Chen's straightforward answer immediately caused Chu Min beside him to burst out laughing. Spirit Warrior's words, though seemingly gentle, contained such contempt that they angered anyone listening. But Mu Chen's blunt reply turned Spirit Warrior's pressure into a joke. Spirit Warrior stared at Mu Chen for a long moment, then nodded slightly, sighing. In that case, don't blame me for not giving face to the Flame Emperor. Giving face to the Flame Emperor. That's something the Western Battle Emperor might listen to, but you, although you're a disciple of the Western Battle Emperor, you're still far from his level. Muin sighed helplessly and responded. Muin did not like Spirit Warrior's pretentious tone, so he counterattacked fiercely, showing no regard for the other's pride. And to Spirit Warrior, Muin's retort was indeed harsh. He glared at Muin for a while, then rubbed his brow, saying, "Looks like you're truly seeking death." His voice remained calm, but this time, everyone could feel the cold, killing intent beneath his words. Both Spirit Sword Sun and Spirit Dragon Sun noticed Spirit Warrior's change in demeanor and immediately shot Muin a look of pity. They knew him too well. Every time Spirit Warrior was about to go all out, he would unconsciously rub his brow. And the outcome was always the same. His opponents ended up in a tragic, gruesome state. Muin might soon realize the heavy price of provoking the Spirit Warrior. Choose someone, the Spirit Warrior said, glancing at the Spirit Sword Sun and the Spirit Dragon. The Spirit Sword Sun burst out laughing, his figure shooting towards the distant mountains, a fierce and cold sword energy shooting up into the sky. His laughter echoed as he called out, "Sumu, let's see if you dare to call yourself a sword immortal after today. Are you afraid?"